Welcome to this explainer. Let's dive right into an assumption I think almost all of us make. I guarantee practically everyone watching has heard the name Cape Verde. It's one of those places that just kind of floats around in our collective geographic awareness, right? But if I handed you a blank map of the world right now and asked you to point to it, most of us would be completely lost. So where exactly is it? It's an archipelago sitting way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of West Africa. And what's really fascinating is that this tiny, often overlooked nation is quietly hiding some of the wildest, most surprising stories on Earth. We aren't looking at a dry list of facts today. We're going to uncover some truly extraordinary reveals. Let's start with a massive realization about how this country was actually built. Pre-1456, zero. Absolutely nobody lived there. Unlike almost every other country you can think of, Cape Verde had absolutely no indigenous population. Every single person alive there today is a descendant of someone who arrived in just the last 500 years, specifically Portuguese settlers or enslaved Africans. It is entirely a nation of arrivals. And speaking of arrivals, there's a massive demographic surprise hiding here today. Right now, there are about 600,000 people living at home in Cape Verde. But there are over 1 million Cape Verdeans living in the diaspora across the US, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Senegal. There are drastically more Cape Verdeans living outside their country than inside it. But despite being so small in local numbers, they punch incredibly far above their weight culturally. Cape Verde actually invented its very own music genre called morna. It's a hauntingly melancholy, deeply emotional style of music that perfectly captures the soul of the islands and really the longing of that massive diaspora. It's so culturally significant that UNESCO declared it an intangible cultural heritage. And this beautiful music reached the globe through one extraordinary woman, Cesaria Evra. She became an absolute international icon. But what's really amazing is that she famously performed barefoot. This wasn't just some quirky stylistic choice. It was a powerful, deliberate act of solidarity with the poor back home. Culturally rich, for sure, but let's pivot to how this nation is actually run, because their track record is staggering. Freedom House consistently ranks this tiny island nation as the #1 most democratic country in all of Africa. For a developing island nation, that is a monumental achievement. And that #1 spot translates to actual on-the-ground reality. We're talking completely peaceful transfers of power, a truly free press, and rock-solid stable governance, totally unbroken since they gained independence back in 1975. It is literally a beacon of political stability. And sometimes that fierce independence translates straight onto the sports field in the most poetic way imaginable. Flashback to a historic 2015 football match. Cape Verde 2, Portugal 0. This wasn't just any match. This was Cape Verde beating the very country that colonized them for 500 years and doing it right on Portuguese soil. Okay, let's dramatically shift gears from history to geography, because Cape Verde's landscape is just as surreal as its story. On the island of Santiago sits Lake Retba, better known simply as the Pink Lake. And I mean vivid, fairy tale pink. It's not a trick of the light at all. It's caused by microalgae reacting to intense sunlight in water with an incredibly high salt concentration. It's so salty, in fact, that it completely changes human buoyancy. Workers are out there daily harvesting salt from the water, but because the concentration is so intense, they just float effortlessly on the surface of this bright pink water. It's a visually stunning, almost alien scene. And right next to fairy tale pink lakes, you have Pico do Fogo, a towering 2,829-meter active volcano. It is one of the most active volcanoes in the entire Atlantic. But here is the kicker. People don't just look at it from afar. Farmers actively utilize its incredibly fertile slopes to grow coffee and grapes. You can actually climb right into it. The resilience of the locals there will leave you completely astounded. Pico de Fogo literally erupted in 2014 and totally destroyed the nearby villages. Did the locals abandon the site? Not at all. They refused to leave. They went back and rebuilt their homes directly inside the caldera. They are living directly inside the crater of an active volcano. If a village inside a volcano isn't wild enough, how about Ilha de Fagioth? This is an entire island made literally out of seashells. We aren't talking about a beach with a lot of shells on it. We are talking about an entire landmass where clamshells have accumulated over generations, held together structurally by the roots of mangrove trees.
Just picture the overwhelming scale of this for a second. You're walking on streets paved with shells. You're looking at houses entirely decorated with shells. There's even a cemetery situated right next to it where every single mound and structure is built entirely from them. It is an environment totally shaped by millions of marine artifacts.
Yet, in sharp contrast to those bustling, shell-paved streets, you have Santa Lucia. This is Cape Verde's only completely uninhabited island. It has existed in centuries of permanent human silence. You can rent a fishing boat to go see its towering dunes and pristine white beaches, but you are absolutely not allowed to stay. It is preserved entirely in its natural state. And that strict commitment to the natural world pays off globally. On an ecological scale, Cape Verde is the third most important nesting site for loggerhead sea turtles on Earth, sitting just behind Florida and Oman. For a tiny archipelago, its role in global marine biology is just massive. To really grasp what being number 3 means, get a load of this: 200,000. That is the estimated number of turtles that return to the exact same Cape Verdean beaches every single year to nest. It is an annual migration of staggering proportions, happening right on their shores. So let's pull back and look at the big picture we've uncovered today. An invented, UNESCO-recognized music genre, a diaspora that outnumbers the homeland, a surreal pink lake.
Farmers living inside an active volcano, islands built of shells, and beaches swarming with hundreds of thousands of turtles. All of this packed into one tiny archipelago out in the middle of the ocean.
It completely shatters any preconceptions you might have had at the start of this explainer. Cape Verde isn't just a spot on a map you couldn't find earlier. It is a tiny island nation with a surprisingly rich and profoundly layered identity. It really begs the question: if a place this small can hold this many extraordinary secrets, what other tiny dots on the map have we been completely ignoring? Thanks for exploring this with us today.